Can you turn the microphones down just a little bit? I thought it was just.
Good evening. I'd like to convene the Monday, September 9th, 2019 meeting of the Watertown Board of Education. I ask that we please rise for the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Bristol? Here. Mr. Mikowski?
Here.
Ms. Rinaldi?
Here.
Ms. Wilk?
Here.
Mr. Lambert?
Here.
Ms. Crotty?
Here.
Ms. Rosa?
Here.
Ms. Albino?
Here.
Ms. Eastman?
Here.
Mr. Arnold?
Thank you, Mrs. Davidson. Before we begin in the rest of the agenda this evening, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence in honor of Mr. Joe Harrison, our superintendent's father, who passed away this past August 27th. Thank you. Item D in the agenda, minutes. Do we have a motion for the minutes from August 26th?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move that the board approve of the minutes from the August 26, 2019 Board of Education meeting as presented by Ms. Davidson.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? One abstention for Mrs. Wilk. Motion carries. Moving on to item E, we're very excited to have Mr. Jordan Arnold with us this evening for his report from our student council rep.
Thank you. Mrs. Mecca from John Trumbull Primary School reports that they had a successful opening. Mr. Nick Perugini from the Town Times and Mr. Bill Shettle from the Republican American joined the John Trumbull on their first day of school, and faculty was thrilled to see both their pictures in the newspaper. First and second grade students are currently learning the routines of their classes, and kindergartners are learning the 3 R's of ready, responsible, and respectful. The John Trumbull Primary School staff are proud that their first PTO meeting had 70 parents and teachers present. Parents were invited to volunteer in several classes throughout the school year through PTO. Ms. Scully from Judson reports that it was a smooth opening of the school. With the help of Judson staff, all students are comfortable starting school, and some have even begun to assist with the daily announcements. As part of their opening procedure, a fire drill was conducted with all students and staff being accounted for within 4 minutes. Students are busy, Classrooms are busy places with students learning new procedures and meeting new friends. Teachers have begun the work of setting expectations and building a sense of community. Ms. Scully has welcomed all the students by visiting classrooms and reviewing the school-wide expectations. The importance of respectful, responsible, and safe were reviewed with all students. The annual Back to School Bash was held on September 3rd, and this was a time for families to reconnect and for students to have fun on the playground. Ms. Fekete from Polk reports that it had a PTO-sponsored Back to School Bash on September 5th. They had a great turnout. There was music, a giant inflatable slide, games, and Frankie's for dinner. During PLCs last week, Polk teachers had the opportunity to view class level results for both last year's class as well as this year's class. Teachers were able to sort through various results by subgroup, such as gender, English language learners, and IDEA. Teachers used a protocol to analyze and reflect on the results to inform instructional decisions for the upcoming school year. Polk had their back-to-school kickoff assembly on September 6th. They outlined the school-wide expectations and 3 new initiatives in lieu of their previous bucket-filling program: Polk Perks, monthly assemblies, and school families. More information will follow on the new initiatives. Ms. Slurs from Swift reports that They are excited to welcome Watertown Police Officer Chris Donston as a full-time resource officer at Swift. Officer Donston has been busy this past week getting to know the students and staff at Swift. They are grateful to the Board of Education, the Watertown Police Department, and the citizens of the town for funding this essential position. Swift has had a great opening of school thanks to the support of their staff. The school looked great and the classrooms were very welcoming for all. The students at Swift have already begun to use their new Chromebooks, and they give thanks to the district for making this possible. Ms. Parlato from Watertown High School reports that they have had a great start to the year. Classes are running smoothly, and everyone quickly learned their schedules and ways to get to class. There's a spirit of positivity and friendliness across the school so far this year. They had 3 productive days of professional learning to start the school year before the students arrived. Teachers worked carefully to unpack the school's theory of action and to come up with specific steps in their classrooms, departments, and for the whole school. Watertown High School has implemented a new program known as Good News Calls. Teachers nominate students for their positive behavior, and one of the assistant principals calls home to let the family know of the positive behavior going on. So far, parents and guardians have been excited to receive these calls. Watertown High School has held their first leadership meeting last week, where they continued to discuss the Watertown High School theory of action, and they began to talk about the grading and the current passing grade at Watertown High School. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Arnold. Any questions for Jordan?
We told him we were going to have lots of questions.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item F in the agenda, Superintendent's Recommendations and Report. Dr. Harrison?
Good evening, board members, and good evening to our community. I'm excited to be here this evening and just talk about what a smooth opening that we had to the start of the school year. Of course, you heard from each of our principals through Jordan's report, but also wanted to just say just the tone in our buildings and the tone with our staff has been really positive, and I believe that was set long before students arrived in school, and really started with the professional learning days at each of the individual schools and with convocation. There's a great time to kick off the school year together. Tonight, as far as the recommendations, you'll see many recommendations there related to clubs and stipends for our teachers. You know, at our last board meeting together, we talked about the vision of a graduate and where we wanted our students to be. And we talked about things like ensuring that they're empathetic, persistent, that they're able to communicate, collaborate, lead responsibly. Well, we recognize that all of the clubs and activity groups that you see listed on tonight's agenda, that plays an integral role in developing those characteristics and those skills in our students. And we use those clubs and those after-school and extracurricular opportunities for students as a way to build those 4 areas of knowledge from the vision of a graduate. So these are really important, and I think it's really nice to set the tone for the start to the school year by looking at all the opportunities that all of our students have at all grade levels. Some of the clubs listed, we see Student Council, the Lego Club, Robotics, DECA, WOA, Intervention Convention, Interact Club, Model UN, Delta Club, the Wood Club, which I thought was lots of fun at Swift, Link Crew, and excited to see Best Buddies come back this year with 2 of our staff members who have stepped up to co-lead that club. And again, it's just a nice picture as to ways that we can use every opportunity to grow our students and think about who we want them to be as adults. We also recognize that clubs is not the only way that we do this, but we also do this through athletics and our student participation in school sports. This week, we will have our kickoff to our fall sports season on Thursday, September 12th. And so Mr. Catuccio is excited to be working with our students and working with our coaches to make sure that they have a really strong start to the year. I'm happy to report that we have about 290 students at the high school enrolled in fall athletics. which is huge. That's 37% of our entire school population participating in fall sports alone at the high school. That's down a little bit from last year. Last year we had 318 students. Percentage-wise, that was about 39 students, so down just 2%. But we know that this decrease in sports athletic participation is not something that we only see here in Watertown, but nationally, in 2018 was the first time in 30 years that nationally there was decline in enrollment or participation in high school athletics nationally. And I think last year, in 2018, it was down by about 450,000 students or something like that nationwide, which is huge, particularly after 30 years of increases year over year. And we not only see that that's a national trend, that's also been a trend across the MVL. Mr. Coutinho and I talked about that there has been lots of changes within our conference in the number of students in area high schools that are participating in sports, which is shifting us from 3 levels, where with a lot of our sports, we have a freshman team, a JV team, and then a varsity team, shifting it down to 2 levels where it's just varsity and like a Froshmore schedule. In order to make sure that we have enough students to participate. So it's just, we'll continue to look at what that enrollment looks like. I don't think it's any cause for alarm with us at the high school, but it is definitely representative of national trends that we see in high school athletics. This really is complicated by huge trends that we see in sports from ages 6 to 12 nationally. That there has been a significant decline over the last 10 or 11 years in youth sport participation. In 2008, 45% of 6 to 12-year-olds participated in some kind of sport. That is down to 38% in 2018. And so you would never know that when you just show up to our athletic events. This weekend I got to attend my first Pop Warner game as a parent, not as a superintendent, but seeing all of our little ones out there running, it's great to see them participating and being a part of something and really developing these skills. But we also know that there's been significant declines in youth participation in sports for those age groups, not just in our town, but in towns all across the United States. And so we'll continue to think about ways that if we see athletics as playing an integral role in developing our students as young adults into adulthood, then we'll continue to consider ways of offering more opportunities for them through school-based athletics or school-based intramural programs or school-based clubs, because those are all the opportunities, all the ways that we can build those skills in our kids, and think about ways that we can build on the vision of a graduate all the way from our youngest students to our oldest students. We know that there'll continue to be shifts nationwide, but we're thinking proactively about how we can address some of these issues locally. And I think part of that is with building strong partnerships with our community sports groups. And I know with Mr. Coutinho, we've done a lot of work to try to do that and build those bridges and think about ways that we could support each other in the bigger goal of meeting the needs of our students. The other piece to that is, sorry, I was trying to go off my notes. The other piece to that is that we want to make sure that all of our groups have really great facilities. And so you know that we've been doing a lot of work with our long-term capital improvement plan and the capital improvement fund. And so before our last meeting, we had a finance meeting where we talked about some changes that we want to make to our proposal. Mr. DeStasio and I are working on that. We'll submit that back to the town, but we are looking forward to moving to the next steps with our capital improvement fund and believe that this is going to be a big key to us having great facilities for our students in the long term. We had some discussion about some of those facilities tonight, looking at our track and looking at improvements that need to be made to our turf fields. within the near future. And so making sure that we have a clear plan, financial plan to spend that money responsibly. And that's all I have. Are there any questions?
So I was just wondering if you could explain the stipend for Miss Archibald and Miss Baldwin, Director Baldwin?
Yes. So we have always had a math coordinator for the district. Previously, Elise Archibald was our only coordinator. Basically, the coordinators work with the director of curriculum and instruction to think about kind of district-wide concerns related to math or whatever the department is. Going forward, rather than Elise doing that position by herself, she reached out and asked if she and Ms. Baldwin could split that, since there's already the natural division of responsibilities related to the instruction. And so they'll work with our principals and with our teachers as far as identifying resources that are needed, putting together budgets. Those are some of the responsibilities of those district-wide coordinators. That's beyond the scope of their work as math specialists. So as specialists, they're mostly working with the curriculum and with the instructional pieces, but this gives them, with this additional coordinator responsibilities, gives them more of the logistical planning piece behind the scenes.
But I thought they were supposed to be working with the teachers in the curriculum. That was part of their,
Right, so the coordinator position, the coordinator stipend is more of the, working with budget, with planning resources, looking at, district-wide math night or events like that. So if you think about, our K-12 music coordinator, for instance, Ms. Borbis, will be working with all of the music teachers across the district to put together our concert schedule, to look at what are some areas that we want to focus on as far as offerings that we have for our students related to band or strings or chorus, which goes beyond the scope of what her work would be kind of on a daily basis working with students. And so it's those responsibilities that are tacked on.
I know we're used to seeing a lot of these positions coming in September as the school year begins and the assignments are determined. When I first saw the agenda, I said, are any of these new that I'm not aware of? But clearly we haven't added any. I'm very thankful to all of the teachers and coaches and staff members who have stepped up to the plate for all of these positions. We don't generally have the highest rate of stipends for these types of advisor positions and coordinator positions, and I know they spend more time than I would say what we would normally expect of them, and I just want to tell you how much we appreciate that from them. It's a lot of work. Okay, all set? Any other questions for Dr. Harrison? All right, moving on to G, committee reports. Mrs. Rinaldi, Chair of Curriculum and Instruction.
nothing at this time.
All right, and Chair of Policy and Labor, Mrs. Wilk.
Yes, Madam Chair, I do have a report. The 2019 legislative session has resulted in several Board of Education policy applications, and Mrs. Crotty, Dr. Harrison, and I are in the process of reviewing the first batch of them on behalf of the Board. There are also a few potential policy changes that we may recommend to the Board based on legal trends or best practices. Some of these areas that are under review include revisions to our non-discrimination policy, budget procedures and line item transfers, employment and student-teacher background checks, homeless children and youth, food allergies, and glycogen storage disease. Board members can anticipate reviewing these recommendations for approval during our October board meetings. There will be additional policy revision recommendations that will come later this year.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your behind-the-scenes work on reviewing all of the legislative changes and how they relate to our policies. I really appreciate it very much and look forward to reviewing those with you. Budget and Finance, Mrs. Bristol,
Nothing at this time.
and Facilities, PBC, and Operations, Mr. Lambert.
Yes, Madam Chair, tonight, we had our Facilities and Operations Committee meeting. Items of discussion were update on work and finances related to remaining HVAC repair work at Watertown High School, construction schedule and update on our solar panels, and also updated project summary sheet was discussed at length. And on our municipal center project, the coming week schedule will continue electrical rough-ins, housekeeping pads to be poured in the boiler room, finalize underground storm drainage on front side of building, painting of upper B ceilings, roof over new addition to be completed, roof over new and old building A to be completed, HVAC rough-in to continue, boxing out for middle parking lot to be done, casework for upper B to be delivered on Monday, site concrete to start on the front side of main entry for stairs, shoring up for columns to start on 9/9, tile work to start in bathrooms on 9/9, concrete floor in old music room to be poured. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. I have a comment to make. I don't think that the public would ever be aware of the amount of committees that you represent us on. One of which is the Cablevision Advisory Board, which thankfully none of us have to experience what that was like this past year with some of the issues that were going on behind the scenes. I think the public would be in shock. The amount of hours you've spent with that, sitting and representing us on the Public Buildings Committee, keeping us up to date on that project has been really important to our planning. Being chair of facilities, just that, this year your leadership as chair has even expanded. You're making sure we're having facility committee reports at minimum every quarter. I feel personally much more aware of what's happening, which goes along with our district improvement plan and the board's commitment to it, to really have a keen understanding of where we are in facilities and what we need to plan for, what resources we need to help everybody do their jobs that they need to do through facilities. So I really want to thank you for that. And I'm sure, yes,
Oh, excuse me. Can I say one thing about facilities?
please.
It's amazing through the years, the amount of work that's been done in facilities in this district, but what is really amazing is the kind of questions that we're getting from board members. They're really getting into this thing. And it's nice to see that the questions that are coming out and the thought that's been put into the questions, and Mr. Stasio has been a great help. I can't say enough about him. I don't want to embarrass him, but he's doing a great job. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. And moving on to governance and community engagement, Chair, Mr. Makowski.
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. Item H, Madam Secretary, do you have anything to report?
Nothing to report this time.
Okay. For my board chair report, I think I just want to mention how inspiring I found your convocation to be, presenting the district improvement plan to the staff and feeling the energy and commitment that was in the room with all of our teachers and staff. It was just incredible to see. The atmosphere was electric, and I really thought that you were extremely inspiring, and I really appreciate being able to witness that for those of us who were able to attend that day. So I just want to thank you for that. I also want to mention that, just in this very short amount of time that school has started, credit to you and your cabinet and the administration and our faculty and staff, that I can already see major traces of the district improvement plan throughout the school. You think about the things that Mr. Arnold mentioned in his report. There's traces of the district improvement plan in there. You hear about the professional development that's being done, that was being done before and after convocation, related to our theories of action and all of the planning. The postings that I've been seeing on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. Thank you to the high school for joining Instagram. I think that's a great place to be right now with the age group. It's just very exciting, and I'm really proud of the district and how they've really immediately are making what the district improvement plan had hoped to come to life. So I wanted just to mention that. Moving on to item J, action items. Mr. Daniel Emmons, for the second year in a row, I believe, or third, is it third?
I think it's the third.
Third year in a row has donated a very large amount of money to our district, and we are extremely grateful for that. Is there a motion to accept?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that the board approve of the generous $3,000 donation to the Watertown Public Schools from Mr. Daniel Emmons of Theraplant LLC, and that a letter of appreciation be sent to the donor.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Any comments on how the district could use those funds?
Sure. So last year, we were really honored to have the donation, and we used it as part of our training on Ruler. And so Ruler is our the framework that we're using for our social and emotional component of our strategic plan, Watertown Learns. And so with that money, we were able to put that towards the cost of Ruler training for our administrators in collaboration with Advance. So it was perfect timing. This year, Mr. Brown and I have already started talking about ways to invest this money again into that same component of our strategic plan, and looking at really just building a partnership with Mr. I almost want to call him Mr. Theraplant, Mr. Emmons, about how he's supporting our efforts related to social and emotional learning. And so I'll share more information about that once we have our plan in place.
Thank you. Moving on to item K, future agenda items and board member comments. Any agenda items or comments at this time that you would like to make? All right, seeing none, item L, first round of last round, only round actually, of public participation. Any members of the public wish to address the board this evening? Okay, seeing none, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We are adjourned. The time is 7:59. I don't know.
26 is our